Hello my friends, Sean Ferrick here for Trek Culture and welcome back to this week's episode of Ups and Downs. Now before we go on, I just want to take a moment to thank once again our sponsor Surfshark, who are sponsoring this entire season of Ups and Downs for us. Surfshark really are the best VPN out there and we have worked with them for years. They have seriously helped us out in a pinch. We really value the ongoing relationship that we have with them. So thank you so much to Surfshark. And use code WhatCulture and get a freaking 83% off your purchase. We're going to go through all of the ups and downs for this week's video, which is Star Trek Discovery Season 4, Episode 4, All Is Possible. We're going to go through everything we liked and give it an up, and everything that we didn't like and give it a down. Without much further ado, let's get straight into it. Now, there was a lot in this episode which I feel it was a mixed episode with some really strong character moments. A first up that we must address straight away, Linus is back. We love a bit of Linus. Had to get that in there straight away. I see Linus, I give him an up. He reminds me of a Gazinti from Lower Decks. He's on screen, there's an up. This is an episode that is 3 pieces of the pie. One of those pieces is Dr. Culber. Now, I really should rename him Counselor Culber this week, and he's getting an up from me. We get to see kind of what we're expecting when we hear the words counseling. You know, sitting in the chair, facing each other. We see Tilly and Culber, we see a lot of Book and Culber. And this is what we've kind of been waiting for because we knew Culber was going to be the counselor on the starship this season. He's able to give some very good advice toward Tilly, which of course I will discuss in a bit more detail now in a moment. But really the bulk of Culber's episode is spent with Booker. Now, they're going through again the trauma of losing Kwejian, and some of the methods that Culber is using is actually really, it's quite progressive, it's quite open, and there is an interesting technique behind it. You see, Culber addresses up front that while he is ship's counselor, he's also been a colleague of Book's for over a year now. And he actually discloses kind of personal feelings with Book as well. Now, I'm giving this an up because of a very real world reason. When you are in a professional setting as a counselor, you must be very careful about how you put information across and what you're able to bring into the counseling setting. Now, Culber, by mentioning his own feelings, is addressing this head on. And it's to help make Book more comfortable in these sessions. After all, they speak about the fact that it's more or less Burnham who's made Book go to these sessions. Culber is using this to make Book more comfortable, and it feels very real. And so that, for me, was most definitely an up for this episode. However, I do have a down in this storyline as well. As a viewer, it was quite frustrating to see Book seemingly go backward. Last week we had a beautiful pathos moment of Tarina's mind meld with Book that helped him gather a measure of peace. Now we knew this wouldn't be the end of his trauma, but it felt as if we were sort of moving on to the next step of this story. Now unfortunately, we seem to have gone backward, and there is addressing the mind meld by saying, yeah, it helped for about a minute. And then he went backwards again. Don't get me wrong, I understand that trauma is a journey and one does not simply turn a corner and that's the end of that. But I have to be a bit critical. As an audience member, I do feel that this is ground we've already covered. And again, we do have a finite amount of time in this season. So for me, unfortunately, the amount of time spent on Book's trauma this week was unfortunately a down. Excellent performances, but The second third of the episode, if you like, goes almost entirely to Tilly's mission. She is leading the cadets and Adira on a training exercise. Mary Wiseman gets an up from me this week. She is a breath of fresh air that Star Trek really needed, because Discovery is very, very serious and it takes itself seriously. And then along comes Mary Wiseman, who in quite serious storylines brings not just comedy, but this levity in a heavy situation, which is very, very needed to break that tension. She is approached to lead this group on a training mission. Now, sorry, Kovac, return to Cronenberg. That's an up from me. Bit similar to the Linus situation, I see Cronenberg, he gets an up. She is tasked with bringing these cadets away on this mission, and you can feel that she is taking charge. Adira struggles a little bit. The other cadets, we have Gorav, who is a Tellarite, we have Hiral, who is an Orion, and we have Sasha, who is at least humanoid, or potentially human, was born on Titan. You know, she's very much in charge. Oh, we also have Lieutenant Callum. I'll come back to that. Now, the ship crash lands on an L-class moon, and they need to go and do a mission, and they need to do all this team building stuff. And, you know, it works. It works. It's a break away from the norm. You know, we have all of the DMA, you know, all of that storylines kind of put aside for this week a little bit, and we get a micro mission, and it works. And Mary Wiseman absolutely sells it. She sells being in charge. She sells the panic that she feels of being in charge, and also those around her really, like when they're looking to her for leadership, it feels real. So this works for me this week. Now there is issues with it. One down, yet again, because it's a bit inexcusable, is going to Hiral's Orion makeup. It looks like a green version of Odo's makeup from DS9, and it doesn't look good in super duper HD. I will say that. Downed it last season with Osira, downing it again this season with Hiral. There was also another down in that there was quite forced conflict, I felt, between the cadets in this episode. Hiral makes a suggestion at one point of hiding in a cave away from a creature that's chasing them, and Sasha turns on him in a moment and she's like, oh, what a great idea. And Gorav, you know, they stumble a little bit in the exploration of the trauma of Gorav's family, the crimes that they have suffered at the hands of the Emerald Chain. Now, it's wrapped up quite nicely, but it does seem a bit, well, frankly, racist, and just where is, you know, kind of time and a place, mate, time and a place. So the forced conflict between the cadets, that was a struggle for me now this week, I have to say. Another down for me this week is, you know, we had a red shirt. So Lieutenant Callum is piloting the shuttle, and, you know, he dies and nobody really cares. And I mean, for Discovery, which is a show that is all about every single person is important, and it's been quite good for that. And, you know, every loss is felt, and it's been quite good for that. No one cares about poor Callum. And even when we get back to Federation HQ, Kovac goes, yes, Lieutenant Callum's death was a tragedy. Anyway, so about that teaching job. Guys, so that was a down from me this week. And oh, before we leave the storyline, you tease me with the USS Armstrong, and you only show me the USS Armstrong parked at HQ, you're getting a down from me. Give me that Armstrong in flight. The third story of the episode takes place on Ni'Var. Now, this is, again with the beautiful, beautiful visuals, Discovery knocking it out of the park once again in Season 4, but we get some really nice character work here. Initially, I had a down ready to go for how conveniently they got Admiral Vance out of this episode, but actually, it pays off. It does pay off at the end. We have President Rillak and we have President T'Rina. You know, they have this, you know, they're about to sign the treaty, Ni'Var's about to come back into the Federation, and T'Rina says, yeah, just one thing, we need to be able to invoke this article, and we need to be able to go, yeah, we're leaving at any time that we want. Ni'Var exit? Niv exit, anyone? And yes, there's a lot of headbutting over this. And Rillak is just like, no. Like, no, because that will weaken the union of the Federation if anyone can just leave at any moment. Whereas T'Rina is saying, based on the, you know, the issues of the past, we need a way to step out if needs be. And so it's seemingly negotiations break down. Now, Burnham and Saru have been invited for reasons. Saru goes and meets with T'Rina. And is anybody else loving this dynamic between them? That's an up from me. Tarina and Saru have this wonderful exchange where they totally understand each other. And this comes back again in this understanding when Saru is talking about how the Kelpians have had to learn how to deal with that Ba'ul despite their historical differences. It's quite similar to how the Ni'Var will have to learn to live with the past and the Federation, and how indeed the Vulcans and Romulans have learned to live together on Ni'Var. It's a powerful, powerful message. I'm afraid I do have it down, and it does unfortunately go not to Sonequa Martin Green, but to so Burnham is the link that's going to bring Ni'Var and the Federation together, because of course she is, because she doesn't have enough to do. It's just a little bit of piling on, and there's, kind of the only person in the galaxy who can possibly do this. And that's just frustrating because she could have negotiated without being there forever. It seems like she's being set up that every time there's a phone call, she needs to be on the call. And that is potentially going to get either in the way of missions going on, or it's never going to be mentioned again. It does feel like it's going to be extreme to extreme. So that, for me, was a down, despite how, yes, okay, the compromise certainly helped. Now, I do have an up, which is not just the reveal that Relic and Tarina worked together behind the scenes to bring Burnham and Saru on board. That was great. But I do like that Burnham says to Relic, like, I'm happy to help, I want to help, but I need you to be transparent with me in the future. And Relic goes, understood. She doesn't say yes, she says understood. And I liked that. I liked that a lot. The final scene of the episode sees Burnham and Tilly in their old quarters, and it's a real back to basics scene. And I loved the entire scene. This was an up from me. If Tilly is in fact leaving, I don't think she's leaving the show, especially because of how much time we spend at Federation HQ. But if Tilly is indeed leaving for an extended period, then this is a beautiful scene to go out on, in my opinion. I think that they have this bond that just works. And seeing Sonequa Martin Green and Mary Wiseman together in this scene, it's a real kind of strip everything else away. This is two friends just talking about what's important to them. And I loved how this episode ended. Now, take a stroll with me as we go to Cetacean Observations. Now, we have our first Easter egg of the episode, actually almost bookends the episode, and it's the snow globe in Tilly's quarters, and it's the NX-01 in that snow globe. Does anyone else love the love that Enterprise is getting in Discovery this season? Really enjoyed that. And of course, we leave this snow globe with Adira and Gray at the end, so hopefully we'll see it again. Beta Helios is called out as a destination. Now, the Helios system appeared previously not just in Star Trek Online and some of the Star Trek games, but also in the original series episode, Plato's Stepchildren, which is where the Enterprise was en route when all of the events took place. In that gorgeous shot on Ni'Var, we see the Vasquez rocks in the background, which are, I think, the most recognizable rocks in all of Star Trek. I will accept debate on whether this is an Easter egg or not, but when Burnham is discussing Rilic's own ancestral history, when she's talking about the Cardassians and the Bajor, from DS9 we're used to calling them Bajorans, sure, on Bajor, but of course Captain Picard in The Next Generation, and in fact Emissary, called it Bajor. It was like the first pronunciation of the planet, or the people, the Bajor. It may not be an Easter egg, but I think because how much time must go into the scripting, this has to be a deliberate callback to the Bajorans' first few episodes in Star Trek. That's everything for this week, folks. Now, if you reckon I missed anything, please drop it into the comments below. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I can't tell you how much we appreciate how much support you have given this channel. Every time you hit that button, you're helping this channel grow. You're allowing videos like this to get dropped to you every week. So thank you so much, and please continue if you can. I have been Sean Ferrick for Trek Culture. You can catch us over on Twitter at Trek Culture. You can catch myself at Sean Ferrick on the various socials as well. I will of course be back next week for our next episode of Star Trek Discovery's Ups and Downs. Until then, you look after yourself, you look after your nearest and dearest, you live long and prosper. Thank you very much.